I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 196th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. In recent times, there has been much talk in the media about threats to democracy in the United States. Today, our panel will share their thoughts on the veracity of these claims. We have an abbreviated panel today. Two of our panelists were unavailable, but we'll begin with Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services, and Joe Gaines, former faculty member of the University of Akron and Wadsworth High School. Bryan, both major parties have been accusing each other of conducting a war against American democracy. Do you think there's anything to either of these claims?
I guess my short answer is probably no. I really, I tried to determine if if this was just sort of a political thing. Obviously, it's been, they're beating the Voting Rights Act. They figured that is an attack on democracy when, ballots that are just sent out willy-nilly to people, and that we should be able to have elections without voter ID laws. They've come down hard with the Jim Crow and racism and all this stuff that goes along with sort of diminishing our democracy when we just won't let everybody vote. And I quickly point out to people when I hear that argument that there's no other country in the civilized world that allows non-citizens to vote. European countries have very large immigrant populations, and a lot of those people are not citizens, and they're not allowed to vote. So it sort of undercuts the whole argument that somehow we're losing our democracy if we don't let everybody vote. And there's certain groups of people, subsets of people that are sort of kept from voting or suppressing the vote. Another big thing, that keeps popping up in the news is the riots that took place, and they've been characterized as an insurrection. And to me, that's a pretty strong word. There's a congressional committee that's going at this. It has some Republicans on the committee. I struggle with defining that particular incident. It wasn't good. I'm not agreeing with them, but I really struggle with the whole insurrection notion. Trump keeps coming up in the news. He's living rent-free in a lot of people's heads. They look at him as a threat to the democracy. Election, making sure our elections are fair and free. That's another hot topic. I point to what happened just recently in Canada with Justin Trudeau exercising the Emergency Powers Act, which hadn't been exercised since his father did it went back in the day when Quebec decided that they were going to become their own country. And from what I gather now, I don't know of anybody in Canada. I have some friends that are from Canada. I haven't talked with them, but it seemed to me like that is quite a reach, and would be sort of a threat to their democracy when the sitting prime minister can basically declare an emergency, and pretty much it's a police state up there. They're actually using their financial system to track down people that donated. And these aren't rumors or speculation or conspiracy things. People that have donated in Canada to the trucker strike are being tracked down through their checking and bank accounts, and those accounts are being frozen. Now, to me, that's a pretty good threat, if you will, to democracy when somebody can declare a state of emergency when, in fact, the truckers in most of the provinces, from what I read, were also already disbanding and going home. They made their point, and then all of a sudden, boom, this happens, and they send in the police. I look at some of those things, this overreach, as a real threat to democracy. One thing that has concerned me, and I brought this up before, seems to be the partnership between our social media companies and the government. That is concerning. I've always felt that the news agencies and major networks are sort of the guardian of our democracy. And they're the ones that are supposed to be calling out some of these things. And we're not seeing that happen. And we always hear that when someone gets deplatformed from a social media thing, that they're a private company. They can do that. But what concerns me is when they work hand in hand with the government to deplatform somebody or to label somebody dangerous or, disinformation and all that kind of stuff. I look at those things as a real threat to democracy when the government can basically step in with both feet and declare somebody, a threat and have them deplatformed and, like up in Canada, freezing their bank accounts and things like that. That to me, sends shudders, down my back when you hear of those things. So yeah, I'm interested in what other people think, and would be interested in what Joe and you have to say about, what potential threats are there out there to our democracy.
Mhm. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, they're not his. It's really easy to blame somebody. And I do believe that there is a threat to democracy in this country. And I think it started with Trump in many cases. I know I'm not a Trump fan. I apologize to those who don't like to hear that. But I think that in many cases what he did was wrong, and that he got the Republican Party to back him up when he shouldn't have. And the Republican Party shouldn't have backed him up in many cases. But Trump, in many cases, what he did was he put himself ahead of the government, put himself ahead of democracy, made democracy a second choice. And by doing so, I think he really hurt it. And I think if he had a chance, he'd hurt it even more. I don't think he understands that. I don't think he's even doing it deliberately, but I think he does hurt democracy.
Can you explain exactly what he did to hurt democracy?
Well, 1 minute here. I got something written down here I can even read to you. Well, he supported a cockamamie scheme to have Vice President Pence refuse to certify the results showing that Joe Biden had won the Electoral College vote. The idea was that to aim the confusion and create an unauthorized self-appointed state electors, congressional Republicans would award Trump a second term. But a lot of Republican officials, like from Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, as well as federal judges, even those that Trump appointed, didn't agree with him. He did everything he could, in my view, to hurt. Well, he wanted to hurt the Democrats. He wanted to hurt the Democratic Party. He wanted to hurt and stop Joe Biden from winning the election. By doing so, he hurt the American democracy. It doesn't answer your question, does it?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, they're very good points. I guess I just automatically resist generalizations without anything specific. So I'm glad that you came up with some specific examples. I think that the pressure that he put on the vice president to not endorse the election is a very good point.
Well, the thing is, 2 out of every 3 Americans believe that the United States democracy is under siege, is under threat. 2 out of every 3 believe that. I got a lot of my information from a professor by the name of no name.
Well, 2 out of 3, but we don't know how many of those are from the left and how many from the right. I think that the left has done a pretty good job of attacking democracy by interfering with the process of self-rule. We've developed literally hundreds of agencies that make laws that no one else is responsible for. supposedly Congress has a responsibility to study and either confirm or deny the regulations that are put forth by faceless bureaucrats. But in reality, it doesn't happen. They just automatically endorse these things. There are 10 million civilian employees of the federal government, and many of them are out there running our lives. And when it comes to, when you think of democracy as being self-rule, having a lot of people out there making rules that affect our daily lives, to me, that's a threat. That's a real threat.
Isn't that the purpose of democracy?
Pardon me?
Don't you want to get more people involved in democracy?
Yes. Citizens, not bureaucrats. Well, of
Bureaucrats are
course.
citizens. I agree with you. I
Well,
understand where you're coming from.
no, they are. You're absolutely right. But
You know, one of the things, I think if we're gonna, you know, if we're gonna put all this on Trump, and I've basically shared that I'm not for him, I'm for safeguarding the process. Now, if we're to believe the current court filings by the Durham special counsel, it's been pretty clear, and they seem to say that they have enough evidence that the Clinton campaign basically created a false narrative, had, you know, information that was totally erroneous, and they seeded that into the press with this Russian collusion. Now, we're not hearing much about the Russian collusion, seeing that we have Joe Biden as president. We've got almost a war brewing in Ukraine. We're not hearing anything about Russian collusion, but it's pretty clear in the Durham report and the indictments that seem to be coming down that he has enough information to start throwing some people into jail for what they did. They eavesdropped on the president, a sitting president of the United States. Now, to me, that is a threat to democracy. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You know, we had the Watergate thing, and they're saying, if, you know, the press, not the mainstream press, they're saying that this is bigger than Watergate. That, you know, I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, when you're spying on a sitting president and you're intercepting his confidential emails, and you're hiring people within the government. The contractor was in the government that they hired, and he's sort of doing a little side hustle there, and he's picking off emails. And you know, to me, that's just as dangerous. If you don't agree with the sitting president, then you do what you have to do to get him out of office. You don't try to paint him as some crazy nut with some sort of conspiracy thing and try to have him thrown into jail. We've weaponized almost the political process, and they're not going to stop until, you know, they have his hide. Now, they could say the same thing about Barack Obama. They could have said the same thing about Bill Clinton. But once it was over, it was over. And that, to me, is a danger. You know, that's a danger, a serious danger to our democracy when someone's elected, duly elected, and they go after him continually within and without the, you know, within the government and outside of the government. That, to me, you know, that bears some airing, but nobody wants to talk about that because it's bad man Trump. You know, Trump did this, Trump did that. You know, I think we could probably, with the same brush, paint some of the folks on the left with the same, you know, accusations about what they're doing to break down democracy. So
They have too.
pardon me, Joe?
I think they have painted them as negative also.
Well, no, I really don't think we have. You know, here again, I'm going to say 8 out of 10 people that watch the news don't believe that the news is being reported in any way, shape, or form fairly. You know, you can listen to a variety of the major media outlets, and you're not getting the full story at all. You're getting what they feel they want to present. There was just an article this morning from CBS News on social media that said the inflation and gas prices that we're experiencing now and the supply chain issues are all blamed on the Ukraine. Now, I don't know how you reach that conclusion that the COVID is now, the inflation that we're experiencing now and gas prices and everything is to blame on the Ukraine. I don't, if anybody were to look at that and just got their news from CBS, I don't think you can argue that. So, yeah,
when I look back at the beginnings of the country, when the whole idea of self-rule became apparent, I'm thinking about what a different country it was then. First of all, we only had a small handful of states. The population was a fraction of what it is now. The concept of a job hadn't even arrived on the scene yet. Almost everyone was either in agriculture or some type of independent shopkeeper, artisan. A job as we know it didn't really exist then, and that excuse me, we did not have an all-powerful government. We had the small population that existed at the time was very, very much against a powerful central government. But the world has changed. It's changed a lot, and it's been manipulated by partisan media on both sides. I'm beginning to wonder if the whole idea of democracy isn't sort of a naive pipe dream that existed back in the late 18th century, and it doesn't really apply to today. What do you guys think of that? Pardon me?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think
agree with
democracy
that.
is important. I think we need to have it more and more than we can,
Yeah.
and we have it now. I agree with you in the sense it was different back then when we first started it, because you didn't have enough people to vote. The only people who voted back then were the rich, the landowners, no slaves, no immigrants, basically.
White male property owners. Yeah.
Right. And it's changed. It's changed for the better. When my grandmother came to this country in 1901, she came as a citizen from Italy. She came here because she wanted to live a better life. She put, I think, 6 sons into World War II. They fought for America. They fought as Americans. And they got wounded as Americans. One didn't even come back as Americans. But the thing is that the important thing is that what they did was Americans for America.
Boy, that sounds almost like the movie The Fighting Sullivans.
Yeah.
And you
No,
know
it's
what? I
not.
bet they didn't
Not even puppet
identify.
movie.
Did they identify as Italian Americans? This is just, it's entered into our lexicon probably in the last 20 years. You're an African American, you're an Italian American. Back then it was, you were an
No.
American, whether you
You're
came
American.
from Germany, Italy, Africa, you were an American, and
Well,
you went and
one of the problems
you
that they
know.
had was that they didn't teach a language to their kids because they didn't want to. They were more interested in English than they were Italian or anything
Yeah.
else. So I don't speak any Italian because of that.
Yeah.
But
What
I
I
don't know.
wonder.
I mean, this whole anti-immigration thing bothers me.
I think Joe, I agree with Joe on this one. And John, I don't know of any other system that has created more freedom for people than democracy. I don't think you can go back on this. I mean, I want to export democracy all over the world. It's the dictators that take over that ruin the democracy. So no, I don't think democracy is on its last legs. I think we just need to maybe clean up the edges, because I feel empowered when I go to vote. I feel as though my vote is being heard, and we need to get that message out that it's important to vote and to participate into local democracies, state democracies, federal democracies. I think that's the way. I don't think there's any other way.
I'd like to hear both of you chime in on this question. If you were sitting down and talking to a recent immigrant from Russia and explained democracy briefly, how would you explain it?
Well, I want to know what they think democracy is in their country, because they use the term also. It's easy to use the term. It's another thing to practice it correctly.
Let me modify the question. How would you explain American democracy?
People have the right to vote, to make changes in the country. If you want to make a change, you get together with other voters and you make that change.
Very good.
And you have a choice.
Yes.
You have a choice of candidates. And we're totally different from Russia when the sitting president, old Vlad, gets 98% of the vote, and the 2% that voted for the other guy are in some sort of gulag somewhere. I mean, you vote. You vote your conscience. You vote. It's a secret ballot, and you participate in that democracy by being involved in your community.
Two good words: participation and yeah.
Now, how would you explain the free voters in California elected an attorney general that almost all of them now disagree with what he does and what he believes? How does that happen?
Well, people's opinions change. The electorate. And I voted for people as president or whatever, and I didn't like how they became later because their ideas changed, or I didn't understand their ideas fully at that time.
Yeah.
So you think that maybe the people in general were in favor of an attorney general who was an advocate for criminals?
No.
Well, I watched the right left program that I didn't participate in, and Joe and Patty brought up some good things. One is the money that flows in. Now, don't quote me on this, but I believe that the DA, the folks out there in California have had a lot of money thrown at them by George Soros and his foundations. They say one thing, and once they get in, they do another. New York is reeling because of the no bail laws that they put in. It's rob a store, go in, no bail, you're out. It's just terrible. So Joe brought up about being honest and truthful. The candidate should be honest and truthful. Maybe there should be a clawback. If you're not doing what you said you were when you were politicking, then we have a right to recall you and claw back.
They were talking about that on Fox this morning about a possibility of a recall of the Attorney General of California. And the first thing that popped into my mind is, first of all, that's going to take a year, and it's going to cost $1 billion or more in California taxpayers' money. Why is that the only solution? I mean, in Russia, that when they take them out and shoot them or something.
So, John, what you're saying is that you listen to Fox, but you won't listen to CBS News.
I listen to all of them.
Good.
In fact, I listen to CNN more than Fox. Quite frankly, I'm tired of both of them. All the media they're all just taking pot shots at their opposition all the time. Where in the world is the free flow of information? I don't know what to make of each other. I don't know what to make of the information that we're getting about the Ukraine these days.
Yeah, I
don't know what. You listen to one side, and they're telling you the Russians have already invaded Ukraine. Another side said, well, they're probably going to. What in the world is going on? Our media has let us down terribly.
Yeah.
Where is Walter Cronkite when you need him?
He's dead.
Yeah.
Well,
several weeks ago, there was the big push to cancel Joe Rogan. And I had never listened to any of his podcasts. I never had any interest in it. And all of a sudden my interest was piqued because I wanted to hear all of this disinformation that he supposedly was disseminating through his podcast that has some 11 million people that listen to him.
Yeah.
So I picked on, I went on and looked at some of them. I listened to some of them. They're long interviews. And the four men that he interviewed that seem to be getting the most pushback are very well credentialed, academic. They've got PhDs, they've got their doctors, they've been in the system for years, 20, 30 years. One is the most published cardiologist, epidemiologist. These guys got degrees out the wazoo, and he's offering a different narrative. And he's considered a kook. He's a kook. If I go to my doctor and my doctor says, you've got X, I'd like to treat it this way. What's wrong with that? And they just can't stand that these people are going against what the narrative is. And
Yes.
they're slamming Joe, they're trying to get Joe Rogan canceled, if you will. And,
Yeah.
I listen, it's a 2-hour and 45-minute interview with the guy. And I didn't hear anything that was so detrimental. It was his opinion, and he backed it up with research and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't this conspiracy stuff. So I would agree that our the major media outlets have let us down.
Well, we've fallen into a trap of treating everything we disagree with as misinformation.
Right.
And that is, pardon me?
We like to use the term conspiracy too, an awful lot.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a conspiracy,
A
against us,
conspiracy.
he this or that. And
Yeah.
I think what you
Okay,
said was,
well,
I agree with you.
Folks, our time has slipped away.
Wow.
And thank you very much for filling the
It's
time.
good to see you.
Good
Good
to
to be
see you
seen.
too.
Yeah.
Oh,
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.